is a weird game. Revolutionary, but weird. And I've never had a game make me question on how to start a review before.
The Stanley Parable is a game that stands out against the rest because I don't know if I can actually classify it as a game, but it's an entirely different class of interactivity. Interactive fiction is probably the more fitting term. To the older viewers out there, because I'm not sure as to how many of you younger viewers out there have played these three games, but remember Myst, Riven, and Myst 3? The Stanley Parable is the same thing for a new generation. It was originally a mod to the source engine made by Davey Rendon, and then later on a standalone remake was created after his friends and other players really enjoyed it. The original mod was something that Rendon created for his own personal career goals. He probably didn't expect it to take off in the way that it did.
But again, I can't bring myself to classify this as a game. It's not a criticism, it's just more like a choose-your-own-adventure novel.
Rendon set out and accomplished what many of us have probably thought of. He thought about how games confine users to its rules and that players must follow them. But what if there was a game that had rules but the player decided to break them? Well, the Stanley Parable pretty much answers that question. The game would do everything it could to get you back onto the right course. And I'll discuss that in more detail shortly. Rendon developed the mod when he was 22. It was a personal project for him. He taught himself the source engine through online wikis. He thought about how a lot of AAA games assume the player will make the choices given to them, but never considered a what-if scenario. While there were games that were thought-provoking, making players reconsider their choices, that choice still had a result that followed the game's narrative.
But the Stanley Parable asks, what if you didn't follow the narrative and chose to make up your own?
The game narrates the story and you have the choice to follow it, but yet you can choose not to and go your own path, forcing the narrative to follow the way that you're going. In fact, the narrative gets annoyed to downright nasty when you go against its wishes, ranging from passive-aggressive to just plain aggressive. One of the ways I took actually blocked me off when I wanted to go the other way and pretty much said that this was the ending I chose. So not only are you controlling the game controls you. Do you want to follow the narrative or do you want to go somewhere else? Are you the protagonist following a story to shut down an evil mind control device while ironically doing what the narrator tells you to do? Or do you go against the narrator and make him your worst enemy? Or maybe you'll work with the narrator to find the story after getting it lost.
And no matter what you choose, the game just resets itself. It's like being in the movie Groundhog's Day.
You do one thing and the game resets. Do another and it resets. Once you reach a conclusion, any conclusion, you're back at your office and the story begins all over again. Even if you follow the narrator's story, things he says change or things will just go automatically without your input depending on how many times you follow that path. Sometimes a phone will ring and you can answer it, but it's just a pre-recorded message. If you do nothing or take too long, the narrator gets annoyed. Or even if you go with a narrator and at the last second choose option B instead of A, he shows disappointment then excitement as something new happens. There's several different endings which you can choose from as long as you follow the correct path. However, some of them require some serious exploration and imagination to get to, and one is luck-based. So far, out of all the endings, there's only 3 that I didn't get. And there's also little things that'll change each time the game resets, the office looking slightly too drastically different.
Now at first it probably seems like it's going to be a horror game, but you don't have to worry about that. Nothing's going to jump out at you and go boo.
The game is pretty immersive. You really do get this feeling of being alone, and the office building does feel abandoned. But there aren't any enemies, there's no scares, it's just you in an empty office building. And a narrator tells a story, and you can either go with the one he wants to tell, or he'll tell the one that you decide to create. The writing is really good though, and it's funny when you don't do what the narrator wants you to do. It only takes a few minutes to complete each story, so if you know what you're doing, you can get all the endings in under an hour. Well, except for one which takes 4 hours. It's a very creative way of telling a story and can be seen as revolutionary, which makes the Stanley Parable feel like a living entity. But even though I'm playing the full product and not a mod, I expected more, especially for $15. I got it on sale for $8 or $9, but even then, it still feels like that's too much, especially for something that radiates experimentation, and I got a majority of the endings in under an hour. I feel like this is only a fragment or at least the groundwork for a much bigger game.
Should you play it though? Yeah, it's good. It's not $15 good, but it's good, and you should give it a try if you want to experience something different.